What's up, men? Welcome to the Male Cartel podcast. Let's get started.
Do you think men are important? Like for what?
Men are not meant to be dominant. Men are meant to be submissive.
Life's too short to exercise. I'm just gonna be honest.
It's okay to be fat.
Dispelling toxic masculinity and really redefining what it means to be a man. Men can cry. So it's okay to be weak. It's okay to be weak.
I'm telling you right now, not everybody wants to see you win.
You seem to be more woman than you are man. You don't have any manly qualities.
You give them this message that it's okay to be a man.
It's not okay, it's necessary. How are we going to do without men? If you look around the city here, you see all these buildings go up. These men, they're doing impossible things.
It ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
Be a dangerous man. Being dangerous is not being a threat. They're two different things. You can't be a good man if you're not a dangerous man. You say one disrespectful thing to my wife, I am not only willing, but I'm able to inflict great bodily damage.
I'm going to do everything in my power to become a victor and not a victim. I can't explain it, but you better feel winners win and losers lose. I can't explain it any better than that. I don't know how it happens, but winners win. And if you create a culture of losing, if you keep being a victim, if you keep letting losing happen to you, if you keep letting people do you and treat you any kind of way, it's going to become a culture. What's the matter with you? There is no tomorrow. There is no tomorrow. There is no tomorrow.
Here's your host, Nick and Shane.
Welcome, everyone, to the Male Cartel. My name is Nick, and I am the co-host with my buddy Shane.
Yep, I'm right here.
I'm so excited to be back with you. Last episode, episode 7, if you have not listened already, was with my dad, the OG white boy papa, all the names that we call him, Tim Carnes. It was a great episode. If you have not listened to it, please go do so. Shane, what'd you think about it?
Man, it was awesome. He got me good, too.
Oh, you did?
I was not expecting that. And then I wished we were recording. Those who listen to the podcast, if you haven't listened to the episode, please go listen to it. I think you would be edified and you will grow, and there's so much gold. You know, you don't have to pan for it. I mean, this is right there given to you. And but I really wish that we had it recorded when I was eating a blooming onion and we were eating at dinner, because that was the funnest. And and like always, producer Carell was quiet the whole time.
He was.
Beside when he was, trying to hook him up with a girl, there's, ladies around. And I'm looking at producer Carell, those who can't see what I can see. He went from in front of me to now he is in the corner of the room. So we had one episode where he was actually out of the room, still plugged up with all the cords and stuff, but now he's in the corner of the room with his big gulp drink, and he is nodding right now, still with no microphone. So, but I love that episode, and I would say that was one of the funnest episodes I've been a part of.
Oh, absolutely, and the fact that we got our pre-celebration at Outback, that was great. A great lunch. Thank you, Papa. Well, thank you, OG, for that. That was delicious. As well, we picked up possibly a listener. I mean, the server, Kenneth was his name. He was interested in writing down all of the information for our... You know how some people will just kind of give you the...
Lip service?
Yeah, the lip service. They're being polite. I mean, he went and got a piece of paper, had us write down all of our information. So hopefully...
Even told an old boy, too, that was there, too.
Oh, he did? Yeah, he was telling them to listen.
He was super cool. Yeah.
So, Kenneth, if you're listening... Thank you. Thank you for the great service. In fact, we had a gift card for Pastor Appreciation someone gave us, and we went back, and Kenneth was our server then. I didn't, make a big deal out of it. Just let him serve us, but he gave us good service then, too. Man. Not just because we're international podcasts.
Like your dad said.
Right. We did gain a country, so we're in 12 countries now. So it keeps growing. But I love the fact that OG called you out. I love that on our own podcast we can be called out. That's what it's about.
exactly what it's about. And I love that because as men, we just want to grow.
Absolutely.
And nothing grows in comfort. And so I was really grateful that. And then he gave me a platform, really, right, to explain myself.
Yeah, get it right, correct, make corrections.
Get it right. Yep.
So what's been going on with you, man?
Busy. This is busy season. We're trying to wrap up football. So I think since the last time we have connected, I was like real busy doing a lot of different Fellowship of Christian Athletes, speaking engagements, and the church. Everything is like just growing like crazy, but busy speaking. I mean, that's been a big deal.
Good.
I went to Florida, and then the next week I had like 3 engagements, and then it's just been busy. But I'm glad to see like the future, like what's in front of me the next 2 months till 2024, that things will slow down a little bit. I am going on a mission trip to Brooklyn.
Good.
And we'll work in Park Slope there and work with the church, and then we're going to serve people who have needs that we can meet, and hopefully we can give them the greatest need, which is the hope in Christ. And so that'd be fun to go to do. I've never been to New York before. And but my daughter gets to go with me.
Nice.
First mission trip. So she's in 7th grade. So we're excited
What
about
story
that.
with your shirt?
Oh, my shirt. Yes. So if you're watching this, it says half holy and
half hood, half holy.
Half hood, half holy. And it says, pray with me, don't play with me. And so I had a church member, hope she's listening, and who came and gave me 2 shirts. We joked around about it. She says she sees this all the time, the shirt, and it's an athletic, kind of a stretchy feel, so you can work out in. But she said it every time she saw the shirt, she thought of me.
Nice.
So, which I'm thinking is a compliment. That where I come from, how I do things is just kind of even from the stage, Nick. Like you see is what you get. Even if I'm preaching or teaching or doing anything, baptizing people, this is exactly what you see. You see Shane, and so and so I told her, I said, I'm going to wear that to the podcast, and so here I am. Yeah, man.
That fits us. Yeah. Pray with me.
What about
don't
you,
play
man?
with
What's
me.
up with you? What's been
just
going
celebrating
down?
my 23rd anniversary.
2-3. Nah, that's a good number. 2-3.
Yep. 2-3.
It's a great psalm in the Bible, but it's also the GOAT or Michael Jordan.
That's right.
23.
Number 23. And so we just celebrated that on November 4th. Leading up to that, we weren't together. I've actually got a story I'm going to share with the podcast in the next week or two, but what kind of happened while my wife and I were separated on our anniversary. But the reason we kind of did separate things was because, and first of all, 23 years to those young guys who aren't married, they're wanting us to do Women Wednesday. It is possible. It is possible. Like my dad with Tim's episode last time, episode 7, talking about 46 years. Cool that we're 50% of that, but it's possible. Man. It is possible, and the world will tell you, the easy button, just irreconcilable differences, just split up. But you got to work through those things, and you can. But we had went on a retreat to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, which was awesome. And learned some Mexican words. My buddy Bengie, who is a pastor in the Augusta and Aiken, not Aiken, he started a church in Augusta, moved to Atlanta. He taught me some things to say in Spanish.
What did you say? Cheese dip?
That's queso dip.
Okay.
But no, he taught me some things that could get me in trouble. But you see, he's Puerto Rican, so he's trying to cause beef between America and Mexico.
Yeah, you white boy.
Oh, yeah. So, but speaking of Bengie, we went snorkeling. So I know there's a group of people who are tuning in just to hear what happened with the abduction attempt.
Yes, I would think there's tons of people.
That's why. Well, the other half are because of the subject today. Yeah.
Yeah. Of course.
But we had gone out. I'm going to try to make this concise so we can actually get into the meat of the discussion. But we had gone snorkeling with a group from our group that was at the Harvest, retreat. And so we were all kind of there together. There was a few people who weren't there with our group, but they had joined the snorkeling. It was an excursion. And so we went snorkeling. That was awesome. Tons of fish, beautiful. And then on the way back, some of the group decided to take a taxi or an Uber back to the resort versus going downtown in Puerto Vallarta, where you then had to catch a bus and then an Uber. And so it was a little bit of a longer trip.
Yeah.
Well, we decided to do it because like a night or two before, we went and had authentic Mexican street tacos.
Let's go.
It was awesome. If you've never had al pastor on the street,
I'm a pastor, but never had a pastor.
So it's this skewer of like pork that is cooked on the street, like with fire.
Wow.
It's like the rotisserie
like
kind of style.
Yeah, dude.
So good. So we were like, hey, since we're going to be downtown, let's go eat more street tacos. So it ended up just being Bengie and his wife Vanessa, my wife Nikki, and myself. So this is noon on Thursday. This is prime lunchtime. And so we go to the first place. We're having to walk, and we had gotten instructions where to go. And I say all this to lead up to the event because I don't believe in coincidences and how things work out. So we get there. The first place that we walk up to is closed. Nobody's there. So we keep walking up the street. There's another place, and we keep asking people along the way. And when we get there, the lady, very friendly, but she says, we're sold out. This is noon on Thursday. They're sold out of tacos. So Bengie's like, that's a good sign because that means they're good. If they're sold out by noon, that means it's good stuff. So we're hungry. It's already kind of late for us. And so I'm kind of like, hey, we went to that place the other night. We're not too far. Can we just Uber there? And they said, they said we would have to Uber there. And so he asked a few people, and all of this is kind of delaying us. And they told us one other place to go. So we end up walking there. Once we get there, it's kind of like food trucks, but it's different. It's almost like a big trailer, open air kind of trailer. And then there's some restaurants. The first place we went was a restaurant. These were more like almost like the food cart type things. So we get there, once again, sold out. And so the lady said, if you wait 10 minutes, I'll start cooking. Probably within 20 to 25 minutes, we could eat. And I'm like, look, it's already late. I'm going to pull up an Uber. Well, as we're having this conversation, a man is walking around. You can kind of tell he's probably homeless. He's got no shirt on, shorts that look kind of like they're soiled. He's kind of limping. He's got some kind of infection with his foot. And he's walking around just kind of talking. He walks up to this taco stand, and he's talking to the lady. So obviously she treats him well, and they have some of a relationship. And so we're still planning what we're doing. I start pulling up Uber to go to the taco place, which was another one that another new listener, Roy, that I met there at the retreat. He tuned in as well, downloaded all of our episodes. He had told us of a place called like Pepe's or something like that. So I'm pulling it up, and as I'm doing that, Bengie is asking the lady, what's the story with the man? Because he's acting like he's drunk or high. I mean, he's not acting like a normal person. And she said, he is homeless, he is homosexual, and he has AIDS. So don't mess with him. Just let him be. So as I'm pulling up the Uber, I put in the place, go to pay with Apple Pay. Well, the money exchange is totally different between America and pesos. It's a lot cheaper in US dollars. And so when I went to pay, this has never happened to me in my life. I've paid for things that are $1 with Apple Pay. So as I'm putting in the payment, it says that it's too low of a fee to use Apple Pay. I was like, what? So all of this is delaying us. And so I asked Nikki for her credit card so I can put that in. We're in a foreign country, so I want to make sure it's like not our bank card, but we use a credit card. So we put that in, and then I go to submit it, and it says still need the security code. So I had to put in the security code. Well, on her card, it's on the front and on the back. So once again, it's delaying us because the Uber was like 2 minutes away. Had we not had to put in the new card and all that, we'd already be on the Uber. We wouldn't have even been there. So get it submitted. The Uber's on the way, 2 minutes away. So I look up the street, and probably about 200 feet up the sidewalk, there's an intersection. So there's a crosswalk, and people are walking in all different directions. That man was up there. Well, he has a razor. This is what got my attention. And as you think back, like all of these things start kind of coming to your mind. Oh yeah, that happened. Oh yeah, this. And even with the going to this place and how we were there at the right time. So he is shaving the bottom part of his back and the top part of his rear end with a razor. And so Bengie and I recognize it, and we're looking at him like, that's crazy. And then he tosses it on the ground. And we're like, that's not good because the lady just said he has AIDS.
Yeah.
And it's on the ground. Well, at that time, a man starts walking, going past him. And so now I'm watching because I'm looking to make sure the man doesn't step on the razor. And so he walks past and he gets, I'd say 3 to 5 feet. Now remember, they're probably a couple hundred feet in front of us. He gets about 3 to 5 feet towards me. And then there's a little girl between the man and a woman. So there's a little girl and then the mom. And so they walk past him. Well, this man turns, sees the little girl, doesn't like kneel down and start playing with her, and something that might seem odd, but where it could be taken as innocent, but he's still kind of creepy or weird. He literally, with both of his hands, reach out and try to grab the girl, like I'm wrapping my arms around her, trying to grab her kind of deal. The girl shrieks back, obviously terrified. She's 4 to 5 years old. And the mom grabs her. So now we're watching this, and at first you're just kind of observing what's happening. Well, then the man tries again while the mom's pulling the girl. So the dad, recognizing that they're not right behind him, now 3 to 5 feet in front of them, he turns around and sees kind of what is happening. So then about the third attempt happens. So the dad starts walking in his direction. Well, episode 1, we are playing a clip from Joe Rogan. So I'm thinking this is playing out and this dad is about to go after this man. I was like, all right, good on dad. So I feel guilty because the first thought was, oh, record this. Because dad's about to take the dude out.
Yeah.
And then I was like, no, he might need help. What are you recording for? So I start walking in their direction. Well, as I'm looking at them, the dad kind of starts saying something to him, telling him to stop, and he's more waving him off. And if people tune in on the video, they can see what I'm doing. Like he waves kind of the guy off, and the guy balls up his fist like he's going to swing at the dad. Well, the dad didn't engage him violently or even physically. He more was waving the guy off, telling him to stop, stop. I didn't hear what he was saying. Well, I'm already moving in that direction. Well, the dad kind of swoops around his daughter and his wife, and they start going across the crosswalk pretty fast. Well, this man, remember, he is limping around previously with like what looked to be an infested foot. He takes off running after them. Well, I think in between there, I remember saying something like, stop. I remember yelling this way. Well, when he took off running, there's another food trailer blocking my view. So I just take off. I go at an angle to the other side of the crosswalk. Well, this man who was trying to abduct the little girl, he got to the other side before them. Now, he was previously limping. So he gets in front of them, turns when they kind of get to where he's at, and once again is trying to grab the girl. So as I'm running across, our Uber's pulling up. So I run in front of the Uber, hold my finger out, like, hold on. And I'm running to the man. And when I as I'm running, I'm telling him to stop. And as I get to him, I get it almost as close as I can to him without being like right up on him. But I mean, I stand between him and that family. And I look and Bengie's right beside me. I didn't even know he had taken off. I didn't even know he was with me.
Okay.
The girls said that both of y'all just reacted. Like y'all just took off. And so here now Bengie is, so we're forming like a human shield between this man and this family. Like,
and then Bengie's like Puerto Rican too.
Benjie's
so
Puerto Rican.
He can just speak in Spanish.
Exactly.
Like,
because I forgot I was in Mexico. I'm talking in English to the guy, but Bengie is standing there telling him, well, as we get there, we are forming a human shield around this family. They take off back down the crosswalk back in the other direction that they were going. And the mom quickly was just like, thank you. You could tell they were exasperated. Thank you. They're probably never going back to Mexico. This was a white European looking family. They spoke English.
Okay.
They're not
so it's
from
a white family.
This is not this is a tourist looking family.
Okay. I was in my head, I was envisioning.
No. Yeah. But white people live there. So, but I think they were tourists. So they just say, thank you. They hurry up. They're gone. Probably never coming back to Mexico. So I'm standing there and I've got my finger in the dude's face. He's got blood on his lip. We already know he has AIDS. And I tell him, stop, because you can tell he's still looking at their direction, like he's trying to find a way around us. You're not getting around us at all. Bengie later said that he was telling him, calm down or I'm going to punch you. Calm down or I'm going to hit you. And in Spanish, I'm telling him very firmly, stop, back up. Well, the dude gets this evil grin on his face. I mean, it was almost like, I don't know.
Possessed or something, probably.
You see the way the man runs. And this, I have never seen an evil smirk like this in my life. We were thinking this is some kind of demonic, and I know people come from different backgrounds. This was unlike anything I've ever seen. And he smirks and he balls his fist up like he's going to fight. And this guy's kind of lanky, but so I got in a defensive position and I said, and I kept pointing at him and I said, stop, back up. And Bengie's telling him, settle down or I'm going to hit you. And then the weirdest thing happened. He unclenched his fist and took a step back. You know, Bengie's like, maybe he recognized, whatever was in him recognized Jesus in us, because we weren't saying, like, other than him telling him to settle down or I'll hit you, we're not being like, people have asked me, why didn't you just take him out? And I've had those thoughts. Like, I could have just run over there and trucked him with my shoulder. You know, I could have taken him out because he never saw us coming. Like, you think about those things. But when I talk about a little bit of some of my failures, you'll see that to me, that's a victory, not having to get violent. And so I tell him, stop. So he backs down. So we start just keeping our eye on him because he's proven to be dangerous, but we start walking to our Uber. Like, we're not standing there making this thing longer or more extensive than what it is. We start backing up, kind of walking sideways with our still looking at him so that he doesn't come surprise us. But also, the other family now is well past, they're gone. We delayed enough, he's not getting to them. He might not have even seen where they were. So about the time I'm getting to the Uber, he didn't go across the crosswalk. He walks at an angle to where that other food cart was that was blocking my vision. And he starts flipping me off. And so I don't always respond the best way. I'm a bit of, I'm not always passive and, like I didn't get violent. But sometimes my responses aren't always probably the best. So I start shrugging my shoulders like, what you going to do? You know, he's flipping me off. It's like, okay, what you going to do?
You'd be like, I'm gonna punch you in the face. And if you have a demon, punch him in the face. I'm punching all y'all in the face.
Yeah, but okay? I mean, I'm smiling because I'm not riled up to the point like, come on, dude. You know how you see people and they got a beef and they got to talk big. I'm not doing that. I'm just shrugging my shoulders like, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
So it's pointless to flip me off. But he's got his right mind to the point that he flipping me off. Like he knows all that stuff.
Yeah.
So he drops his drawers and he showed me what he was going to do. And he started doing the helicopter and started shaking his junk at me. And now this is in the middle of the day, in the middle of the street.
Man.
And so I give him a thumbs up, like, all right, buddy.
All right.
And then the lady that's in the taco cart, she had this metal spoon, and this thing it's got like the stainless steel counters all the way around. She starts banging on it as loud as she can and starts yelling at him to pull his pants up. Well, as we're backing up, and I forgot this part, there were two other men that came up and they were telling us, don't touch him. He has AIDS. Don't touch him. And of course, their mentality might be if you just touch someone, you're going to get it. I've worked with people who have HIV and AIDS, and you can't get it that way. So I don't know if he unclenched his fist and backed down because he saw those other two men coming up behind us. They were a good bit behind us. We encountered them as we turned to walk back to the car. But we got in the Uber and we just took off. And the Uber driver knew him. And he said most of the homeless people just tend to themselves. They don't bother people. He said, but that guy just got out of jail for the exact same thing. And that's why people say, why didn't you do this? Because he's only going to do it again. I can't help that. Yeah. I, felt like we needed to protect that family, engage with physical violence if necessary. I just didn't feel like in that moment it was necessary. But when he balled up his fist, I was ready.
He was ready. Yeah.
But I didn't feel like I need to do, because I'm in a foreign country. I don't know. I mean, there's plenty of witnesses. I don't know what could happen. I don't want to be arrested myself till they sort it all out. So, you just react. I felt good that we responded without even thinking. I felt bad that my first thought was record it. But even Bengie said he, I surprised him as a gringo, and that most gringos wouldn't have done that. So when his story was kind of the same. He took off. He didn't even realize I was headed there with him. He was just focused on the target.
So Bengie, let you know, us boys on the Male Cartel, we lock and load. We ready to go. We ready like Freddy. So we may be gringos.
We're not your typical gringo.
But we're not whatever that stereotype is. It's not with the Male Cartel. I promise you that.
So the Male Cartel does run Puerto Vallarta, by the way. So
well, I was thinking if they got you punch, say you was Matt Damon. I'm picturing this as a movie. Matt Damon's playing you, and you kicked them dead in the face. Somebody saw that you did this. You're a gringo, and they see that you're part of the cartel. Then you're going to be arrested.
Then I'd be on the run from the Mexican cartel.
Dude. Yeah, man. So that's a cool story.
One of the things I was thinking, and I said this, Bengie even was saying afterwards to the ladies, that's why guys walk with your family or behind your family.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a lion. There's plenty of videos. You see the lady lioness, and then you see the lion behind her. It's like, it doesn't matter what's in front of her because of who stands behind her. The dad had to turn around. The girl could have been grabbed before. Now, I don't know that the guy would have gotten far with her. Obviously, he's gotten arrested for something similar. But had the mom not been there, the girl could have been grabbed, and then it would have been a chase, no telling.
Yeah.
And so, I was like, hey, when you're on the streets like that, you walk beside your family or behind them so that you can see what's ahead, because you can always step up.
That's right.
But you don't know what's going behind you. You get 3 to 5 feet ahead. A lot can happen in just a short amount of time.
I do that with my kids now. I teach them how to, we're at Walmart, and I'll send them to go do something down like 2 aisles down or whatever. Even in Walmart or some other stores, I do this. And then I'll just like walk, off to the side to where I can see them. And sometimes they don't know that I'm there.
Hide
but
behind
I'm there.
the cereal boxes.
That's exactly right. And I'm there watching them to protect them. But I've been teaching them how to interact with strangers and have conversations. And so I want to get to a place literally when my kids, my daughter, everybody else gets much older, and that I don't want to worry about anything. You know what I mean? They reach a certain age, and then they know how to handle themselves. They know how to protect themselves. They know what to expect, what to say, what not to say, etc. But it starts when they're younger, and I find myself doing that now. So that's a cool story. That's not I think people tuned in to hear that story, and because it's such a cool story.
Yeah, and some of you may be ladies. 15% of our audience is consistently ladies. That's not just our wives and my mom, but you may be tuning in just to hear that story. But if you go back to episode 1, we talk about being dangerous men. And ladies, you may want your husband to listen to that. But as we said, it's not just talk. We got to live it. And you have to pre-plan. You have to almost
100%.
say, what would I do in this situation? Because in that moment, you don't think. You just have to go engaged. And whether the guy had AIDS or whatever, if it came down to it, you do what you have to do to protect the vulnerable. And so, we talked about it. And then here's an opportunity to live it. But I would also say, we got to keep our eyes open because there's evil all around, and you got to be ready to protect and to be capable to do what you got to do.
Well, and that's just like sports. I mean, if you're a man and you're listening to this, just think about it. It's just like sports. We talk about like when you play in a game, you just want to read the situation and react. You simulate that in practice. Practice makes permanent. And so you really can't practice these situations, but you can at least run them through and replay them in your mind, and to where this is how I would handle this, I would handle it. And then when it does happen, it's just like a snap of your finger. It's just a part of who you are.
Right.
You see this in sports, and I think with life it's the same way. And so that's how if we had to give you like a practical tip, that's exactly what I would recommend.
For sure. Well, once again, people may have tuned in for that.
Yeah.
Others may have tuned in for today's topic and what we have titled this, and that's essentially where we failed as men.
Yeah.
I know some people may be tuning in because they've already got preconceived ideas of how we failed because they are probably not our biggest fans. Hi, how are you? Well, thank you for joining us. Thank you for being a listener today. So with that, did you want to kind of kick things off? You want to go first?
Sure. Yeah. I'll
doesn't
go
matter.
First. So what I've done is, I think you and I were talking. So Nick and I were talking about it, and I was like, man, I've got pages upon pages. I can write a novel on my failures in life, and so I view. I don't know if this is right or wrong, but this is how I view. I don't view a failure as something that prohibits success. I view failures as something that is a part of success, meaning that you learned from your failures. And so that's how I've always done that. And I think that some of that was like ingrained in me from some uncles that didn't love Jesus and don't think they love Jesus today or anything like that, or of the faith. But they were just strong personalities, and they taught me a lot of stuff. And so with that, I just kind of boiled some things down for me, and I just put it down from a personal angle and then as a professional. And I think from personal, I think if I could talk about a failure that even to this day, I often think about that. I wish that I just wish that I would have done better. And I know the reasons why I did this, but it really comes down. I didn't graduate high school till I was almost 21 years old. And so there's no one to blame but myself in that. And I was 2 months shy from turning 21 years old when I graduated. And so obviously there's a lot of repercussions with that. I remember trying to go to college and had to sit and take a SAT test to get into college with a bunch of high school kids, and I was 22. And so I remember feeling very ashamed and very, I was just very, very ashamed. I mean, didn't want to even look at people. I was in here with the high school kids, and I was 22, and I remember signing up for the test, and that was the only way that I can get into college during that time period. But that was the results of me really just being angry, I didn't have some examples, but in my life to follow, like I didn't have the OG, I didn't have your dad, but that's still no excuse, because I can tell you, I deliberately didn't study for tests. There was a lot of things that I was a hard worker in, but when it come to school, I just didn't have that priority. And I knew, and I can honestly tell you that I knew what was right and I knew what was wrong. It wasn't like I'm a victim because of, growing up the way that I grew up in a broken home and situations and stuff. I actually knew what was right and what's wrong. I actually knew, even playing sports, that, what I should do and what I shouldn't do. Right. And I chose to just, I'm going to do what I want to do and kind of buck the system, and then try to justify my actions, you know what I mean? Why I felt that certain way, or hey, I was hurt. And so that's something I wish that I didn't do. I wish I just would have graduated. I think I was fully capable of that. I didn't keep my emotions in some cases. I got in a big fight in high school, and it got the GBIs involved. It was a whole big deal, man. And
so you were truly part of the cartel, the Georgia cartel.
It was a really big deal. And I was hurt, and I was angry, and I was mad at the world. But at the same time, I had a lot of good people who believed in me, and so I just chose to do wrong. Yeah. And I chose to just do completely wrong. And that's one thing I wish if I go back and I'd fix that. And but I've learned from it for sure. But that's something I don't I shouldn't get a medal for. And I want my kids to make good grades. I want my kids to do the very best, and I'm okay with whatever their best is. And that's why I was like, it's so like your son Tristan, so proud of him graduating early. And then doing the tech school, and then always being a hard worker and all that stuff, And I feel like, man, he and I have always clicked, and I always feel like, we have some of the similarities. I feel like, and you and Tristan are pretty much the same person. I feel like in a lot of ways, and you and I click, and so I see that, and I see, man, he did all this, and you're so proud of him, like to the moon and back. And I don't think I made a lot of people proud in that, and I could have, but I just chose to do wrong. Deliberately, dude. And so that's a failure, man. That's something that stays with me, but obviously I've learned from it and recalibrated. What's you, man? Anything personally?
With that, before I jump to my first one, what would you say, maybe just one thing, because I agree, our failures are not final. They help teach us a lesson if we'll let it. Some people just fail because they don't learn that lesson. For those who are listening, what would be a potential lesson that you could say you learned from that? I mean, because I know Scripture says, for a man that knows to do good and doesn't do it, it's sin. So obviously it even speaks to the sense that there are times we know that what's right, we just choose to do what's wrong because it's convenient, it's comfortable, whatever.
Yeah.
What would you say is maybe one of the lessons you've learned from that?
Yeah, I learned an easy was, I guess, when I was starting going to college, like you just can't put stuff off. I just couldn't say, well, I'm just going to do what now?
Like apply yourself.
Yeah. You know how it is, like when you know you need to get something, you need to do something.
Yeah.
And you're just going to put it off to the next go round, but you have all the time. And so now you're going to chill because you tell yourself, well, I'm just thinking of a dad, you worked all day long, you come home and you got a responsibility, but yet you say, well, I've worked all day long, I could just chill. In my head, it's even that way, even like working out, perhaps, I think wake up in the morning is like, hey, it's my responsibility to take care of my body. It's not my wife's, it's not anybody else, my children, it is my responsibility. And so I get up, and once I do that, I feel better. Right. So I remember, I literally, dude, like, and this is why I'm kind of hard on myself with this. And was because I remember studying for tests and making an A. And even though I'm dyslexic and have some learning disabilities, like I would look at, I would study and have to do a really good job, and I'd make a good grade. I mean, I remember, man, get that test back. I'd be so proud of myself. I made a test. I did all by myself too. Yeah. No help, no parents, no nothing. All by myself, and I'd feel so proud. And I know what it's like. What it feels like to receive the reward of the hard work, and then choose to be lazy or just like, who cares, and be a victim in that. And so I would say don't put anything off. If you got responsibility, you take care of responsibility. And I've learned that, and I've applied that to my life, and now I'm a pretty stickler to that now. Like, and because I feel reward afterwards, I know to be a benefit. And exercise, though, is you may not even see the reward for later on. You know what I mean? Right. The results.
Delayed
gratification type of thing. Sure. And like, but yet you feel better though when you did work out, And so there is some things. What about you, man?
So the first thing I'll start with is probably the thing that has taken up most of my life. I think when I add up all the years that it consumed my life, I think it's like 24 years because it started at such a young age. And so I start there because it was probably the first thing I could kind of relate to. It's part of my story. In fact, I'll share the full story in our show notes for anybody that wants to go watch the video where I've shared it. But for me, I would say being consumed with anger and bitterness, which once again, so when I talk about that abduction situation, for me, it's a big win that the first thing I didn't do was go to like violence. Yeah. Because anger has years ago, it's been many, many years ago, but would drive you to the point where you want to buck up, you put your fist through walls, to that level of anger. So that is violence, whether it's on a person or not, it's being exuded out of you. But it really started in 8th grade with a girl who may have been playing around. She was bigger than me and bigger than a lot of guys. And I'm not saying that to be critical. It just is what it is. If she ever listens, I'm not being critical.
Might be a pageant,
It is what it is.
They big ladies like Badia.
Yeah. So she had grabbed my hat, and I had to, as a Georgia fan, go Dogs. How did that turn out with the Gators? But anyway, Georgia has never had a basketball team to write home about.
That's true.
So I've always gravitated to the Duke Blue Devils. Okay. So I had a Duke hat, and I wore that joker out. Well, she had taken that hat from me, and I went and got it back. And when I went to turn from her, she pushed me from behind and injured my neck. And so there's a whole story that goes along with that, as far as like my parents not being able to afford the medical care that I needed. And I was kind of upset there. I was upset that they wouldn't require her parents to pay for it. There's just a lot there that you just kind of are angry. You got injured, punked by a girl, much bigger than yourself, but still you're injured. It affects your sports. I was a pitcher. I played, outfield. It affects your velocity and throwing a ball. There's just a lot to it. I still deal with the effects of it today. And so couldn't get the proper care. Parents wouldn't make them pay for it. So there was a lot there that you just kind of bury. Then there was a situation at a church where my dad pastored, and things went south there. It was very toxic. Yeah. And people valued their job more than they did the growth of the church. The church was thriving, we were dealing with certain things there, but my dad was handling it well. The demographics of that area had changed, but you still had people who were stuck in their old way of doing things, some prejudice and really racism that was kind of involved there. And so it was a challenge, but then the way people responded to some of the leadership was not good. Some of it could have even been illegal. And really that caused some even more animosity and anger. A man there specific. I mean, he just bold-faced lied to me to essentially take over control of that church when we didn't even know where my dad was. Once again, it's part of my story. But my dad had kind of left one day, just was kind of like, if they want it that bad, they can have it. It was just dealing with all that overwhelming pressure. And thankfully he came back that night. I believe it was like Focus on the Family or one of those radio programs that have the counselors and stuff. He had called them and they had talked to him and said, look, it doesn't matter what happens with the church. You need to get home to your family. And so bitterness and anger at that man, because it was one of those things of, let me ever see him on the street. Like, you didn't care about my dad.
Yeah.
You cared about your job. You cared about power, and you lied to me, had me break into my dad's office in order to grab control of everything. And so for the longest time, I wanted to see that guy on the street. I could not stand him. And then a situation happened with our family, and I'll not get into too many details here, but something had happened where essentially there was a misunderstanding. I was attacked by a family member, and it involved Nikki's side of the family. And so when that caused a rift in our marriage, and we kind of separated for a little bit. And when we came back together, basically I took the approach of either it's me or that person, and you can't see that person if you choose me.
Wow.
And so kept our kid. And so Gavin wasn't born yet. She ended up finding out in that kind of time period she was pregnant with him, with Gavin. And so this family member was not even allowed to see Gavin until he turned 1 year old. But it was all on me. And I did things to, I would go like in church, I forgive them. I'd go to the altar, they would have altar, if you need to respond to this or whatever, and I'd forgive. But then someone would mention his name and it would make me flare up. Or there were other things like there was a disagreement and I would snap at that person. I would throw, there's one time a guy called me, confronting me about something he disagreed with me on. We get off the phone. I throw it. I throw the phone across the room. He's not even there, but I'm so angry.
Yeah.
I throw it across the room and shatter it, and it's just stupid stuff like that. And really it was hearing the true gospel that helped free me of that. We were in a Bible study and they gave an illustration about, don't pay back evil for evil. And when you do good and you're kind to your enemy, it's like heaping hot coals on their head.
Yeah.
And they talked about how that was an old Egyptian practice that would bring somebody to repentance. And so that was really the first domino to fall. And though I felt I was wronged by that family member, I had tried to wrong them in response. And so I was convicted. I wrote them a letter and asked for their forgiveness, letting them know I forgave them regardless. They didn't have to ask me for forgiveness. They didn't have to apologize. I forgave them. And then I also invited them to celebrate Christmas with our family. And that was the first domino to fall, because once you learn true forgiveness in that aspect, then you start thinking back on those other things. Because as they pop up, you go, I need to forgive that person. Yeah. And I need to forgive that person. And then all of a sudden, they all fall down, and you start getting freedom and you start getting help from that. And so that's probably one of the biggest, because there was a pastor, there were several people that even years later, you look back and you're preaching about, at our church, we've talked about being people of the second chance, extending radical grace. And there was a Sunday where I'm preaching that, and it was almost like the Lord's like, are you practicing that? Like, are you doing that? Are you being a people of the second chance? Are you giving radical grace? And so there was one final person that I had to go to and seek forgiveness, but also to forgive. And it's been so freeing. It doesn't mean I don't get angry or upset about things, but that permeated my life to the point of it controlled so much for 24 years of my life. It started in 8th grade and carried all the way through. Not all of them at the same time,
sure,
because I forgave at different times, but in total.
Yeah.
And so my lesson that I learned, that if I could share with anybody, it's to forgive early. Trust takes time to rebuild, so that's understandable if you need time to rebuild trust, but learn to forgive, and sometimes that is a process. Sure, it's not like, oh, I forgive you, because there were times I would go to the altar, or I would in church, oh, I forgive them. But learn to forgive early, often, but for those of us who practice faith in Jesus, to understand the gospel and to teach it and preach it to yourself, because that is the answer.
Yeah, dude.
To understand what Jesus has done for us, that is the only solution to forgive other people, because you go, hold on, have I had to die on the cross for that person's sin against me? No, but Jesus did for me. And so therefore, if he can forgive me for that, then I can forgive this person for whatever it is they've done.
Man, that's true, man. Forgiving people need to forgive people.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's crazy, because you're right, dude. And I think a lot of the listeners, and hopefully you're paying attention. I know you are paying attention. You're part of the Male Cartel. That you see there's a progression, and that's usually what happens, especially seeds and things that are planted in our heart, and as a progression begins to grow, and then like things, there's some plants that are seasonal.
Right.
They grow here and then they don't grow and then they grow, and that's how it is. And then things spurt up, and then like your grandma's Thanksgiving meal where you get a plate and everything touches everything. That's how it does, bitterness, anger, all that touches families, touches your spouse, touches your workplace, touches your health, touches everything.
Well, and also the scripture says out of the overflow
of the heart, the mouth speaks.
So for those who are listening, look at what is overflowing, your mouth and your actions, because that's what's in the heart. So whether it's bitterness and anger, whether it's criticism and negativity, whatever is coming out is what's inside. And so you don't have to do a huge inventory. Just pay attention to what you're doing and saying and thinking, and go, all right, what's inside then? If that's what's coming out, what's inside? So, what about you? Anything else?
Dude, I have a few things from when I first got married. Would be a marriage fail. I actually got married, and when you're dating, you just pursue your girlfriend at the time, and you're on the phone, and the phone dies, and you go to the other phone. You went from the cordless to now the cord phone that you have to hold upside down, and it spins around, and then you're staying on the phone with them all night long. And then my wife and I, when I first got married, I had planned the most epic summer for student ministry and mission trips and everything else. And we got to, I guess it was month 3 of being married. She looks at me one day, and I'm thinking everything, and literally I'm clueless. I think everything's perfect. And she says, "Why do we even get married?"
Wow.
And I was like, "What you talking about, Willis?" Like, I have no idea what you're talking about, lady. And she said that I pursued her when she was, when we were dating, and how I was not pursuing her. But yet again, I had planned a lot of really amazing good things, kingdom things that we'd look on the outside, but look, Shane is killing it. Shane is doing amazing. But yet, in my marriage, wasn't amazing. Just 3 months in, and I had missed the boat. Now, was my marriage like gospel centered? Yes, I would say yes. Was I, serving, like taking care of like some responsibility? Yes, I would say yes. And so, but I was not what we'd call this like connecting with my wife. And obviously things look different now because we're, 18 plus years married, and we got 3 kids, and we've gone through a lot of life. So we connect different than we connected back in those days, And so I think she was trying to, she's never left home for her parents. And so she was probably, a lot of it was missing mom and dad, and you're not connecting with your parents often, just via phone. And I was busy, and and she was taking 2 summer classes, but she had a lot of free time. And I would say what it really boiled down to is that I really wasn't available, making myself available for her, whatever it meant for her. And so, but I had planned everything for the summer that you would look at and go, this is amazing. Now, I didn't take it being like, well, woman, you should just be on the train because I'm doing all this good stuff. My posture at that time really wasn't like that.
You didn't tell her it's your turn to pursue me. I pursued you. When
I
we were
know.
dating.
I didn't even say that, dude.
I'm joking, Diana. I'm joking.
And so the truth of the matter, though, was I took it and I knew exactly what she was saying. What she was saying is that we usually would sit down the way we would connect in like, we'd watch a show or a movie together. You know what I mean? I love movies. Right. And so we'd sit and watch a movie, or we'd lay in, we didn't lay when we were dating, but like we would play like Scrabble or like do something like that, or go do something together where we're together, or we would call it downtime or connect. We're connecting. Even though we might not have to say much, it was the way that her tank would get full.
Quality time.
Quality time. Now that has shifted over the years, and then there's different seasons. I think like my wife with like her love language has shifted with having kids and all this. Mine's remained pretty much stable, physical touch. So that's always been like number one, As long as that's good, we're good. We're A+. So, but for her, I wasn't, and I knew exactly what that meant, dude. And I remember trying to figure it out, and started changing some things, and we got better. And but I remember, and then at that time, 1 year of marriage, even outside of that, so that was a fail. And so what I had to do is I had to really, find out like what was that way that she wanted to connect, what was she meaning, and trying to make that a high priority,
right?
Literally the highest priority. So what I started doing, I heard somebody say this before. It's like when I'm at home, you be all in. I'm at work, I'm all in, and so be there when you're there. And so I need to be present.
Yeah.
And so I changed everything, and it got better. Now, follow that first year of marriage. Here's the other fail. I felt like a failure was we had $40 in the bank. $40 in the bank. And when I look at after that, she was still in school for that year. One more year at school, and she was student teaching and all that, and I was the sole provider. And people would go, well, that was pretty good. At least you had money in the bank. At least you could understand. And here's the thing. I remember not spacing my life out or like pacing. I wasn't spacing events, and I was so rookie. I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have somebody to kind of like I go to. I was kind of riding this like Rambo lifestyle, just being alone, solo Shane on an island. And then after a year, so I was saying so busy, I had tons of opportunity even in that time to make extra money, but I chose not to do it until a bill came up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's normally was not my norm, but because I got ministry, I use that as leverage to, I wouldn't say be lazy, because I wasn't lazy.
Right.
I wasn't, but just a priority. So again, that was a fail. I don't know if that counts as a fail, but I remember feeling the guilt, the weight of only having $40 and feeling like the worst failure on the planet. And like a lot of things, I'm pretty good. Once I get hit with something, I don't know if you're like me, but I get hit with something, I do a self-evaluation immediately. Like, and I look and go, all right, what have I done wrong? And then I try to fix or recalibrate. And I've always been, if I'm trash, I'm trash. I'm just gonna be honest with myself. And I remember going, man, immediately I knew I should have done this. I should have done this. I should have done that. I should have done this better. And we would have had money in the bank, but I didn't. And I was like, that's not going to happen again, and, and we fixed it, and we, but I had to learn from that. And I actually went to my father-in-law, Pops, who's passed away about 11 years ago with pancreatic cancer. And so but I went to Pops and asked him for some advice. And he just, gave me some good wisdom, and it was basically like, it's your job to take care of your family. And you, by any means, this is your first priority. Yeah. And I remember exactly, I transferred back like a memory back 1 year almost to back, had a conversation. My responsibility was my wife, and I was missing it.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? And so I was like, I've got to get this here fixed. It's got to get it right. And then so in that, I had to let my guard down, and I had to seek advice from somebody older and wiser than me, and be humble.
Yeah.
And not feel like I have to do everything or be a certain way. And I had to go to Pops, and he gave me wisdom and smack me around verbally a little bit, hey son, you need to tighten up, type of thing. And I was like, got me in shape, and yeah, so yeah, that was a big one. Obviously in ministry, there's a lot of events and church stuff that I would have done better. And, we don't have enough time. Maybe we have to do another failures episode, but, I'll save those for a different time. What about you, man?
Yeah. Well, and I love what you're saying, because you're kind of also illustrating the fact that you said, that was then. Things have changed with kids. And I think one of the important lessons even that I heard out of that, truth is that when you're married, and we mentioned this, I think it might have been last episode, but it's a continual pursuit, and people change. And so if you get married young, which, you might have been a little bit older. She was a little bit younger. I know in my case,
you were like 12 or something.
I was
18. Were you 18?
I was 19. But yeah. Nikki was 18. And Nikki turned 18 2 weeks later. I locked her down. So you're legal. Let's go. But you change, and you've got to continually pursue, and what might have been in the early days of marriage shift and change. And so you just have to learn that. So I would say, and I could end on this one. In fact, if we want to do a part 2, then I'll jump to what the third one I was going to share, because it's kind of along the lines of that one, and I'll save my other one for another episode. I would say because my life has been in ministry, one, it's kind of like marriage. There is no course in school about how to be married.
Yeah.
It is a trial by error, and you have to be willing to do hard things. You got to be willing to have hard conversations. You got to be willing to bump your head, but you also have to be, as you're saying, be willing to learn and to make that progress. We say get 1% better. We're not talking about, improve by double by tomorrow. Just recognize where you're weak, recognize where you're wrong. And when that's pointed out, seek wisdom, but also then go, okay, I've got work to do. I need to make a change. And sometimes that's a process. It's not going to happen overnight. So you're going to bump your head again. You're going to have that hard conversation again. So I say one of the things when I started what is now Hope Church Augusta, it was New Passion Church when we started in 2009. There is a lot, we had 37 people to start with. We started with my family of 5 first, then we started with 37. We had barely any money. We from where we had come out of, kind of the church situation before we were where you and I met at Greenbrier. It was more of a, kind of a separatist kind of mentality. If you don't believe like us, we don't associate together. It wasn't a kingdom-minded kind of situation. So a lot of people don't know you. They don't know where you're coming out of. So we just have very little support. We didn't have a lot of money. So we knew, but that's what I was being led to do. That's what God wanted me to do. So it was like, we're going to do it. And no matter how difficult it is. And everybody started as volunteers, not getting paid anything. It was more all the money that comes in pays for the place where we rent to do church, goes to the ministry, and that's it. And so I'm working one job that shifted about a year in. I'm working probably about 50 plus hours a week on call 24/7, except for on Sundays. They knew that I was pastoring a church. And so now anything to do with the church has to come in. If you don't have time at lunch to meet with someone, it's got to be in the evening, because you're working and you've got to be in the office in the work that I did, managing a substance abuse program. So that means you got evenings and weekends. And so very quickly, because you're building this thing for God, this is what he's called you to do. It's like starting a business. I know people hate to hear that church is like business sometimes, but it is. It's just the nature of how it is. So a lot of personal family time was sacrificed because of ministry, evenings and weekends. And what really stung me was the fact that Gavin, being my oldest son, whom you want to be there, for a lot of their firsts and be a part of things like fishing and stuff. I was writing a sermon because I wrote my sermons on Saturdays. So all Saturday was basically devoted to church and getting things ready for Sunday, writing a sermon, because sometimes you had time during the week, but not a lot, especially when you're managing the substance abuse program. People are constantly coming by your office. The men in the program, they're residents, so they're there. So you just don't have that time. So Saturday was sermon writing day. And I remember they went to a fall festival somewhere. Well, I didn't even know they were going to have fishing or anything like that. But I remember getting a picture probably through text or something where Gavin caught his first fish. And I wasn't there. And I missed that. And so, and I haven't been there for when any of my kids caught their first fish. I actually just had this conversation with Haley because she's wanted to go fishing, and she's had the opportunity at her Mima's house, but when she's asked me, it just hasn't worked out. And, those things do bother me. They may not see it and may not know it, but it bothers me as a dad that have I had an opportunity? Yes, I could have carved out. And I told Haley that even the other night. There were some things we were talking about, and I said, I could have. Was every opportunity that you wanted to do something available? No. It's just nature of life and when kids ask you for things. But could I have done a better job of certain things? Absolutely. And that's with all of my kids, all three of them. And now they're teenagers or they're young adults like Gavin. He's 20, about to be 21. And some of that you can't make up for. Now, you can do a better job down the road. And as Nikki would have some of these conversations about, when I'm home, I'm not present, or when I'm home, I'm always working. And those things were true, but you justify them in your mind because it's like, okay, Sunday's coming. I'm working a job to support the family, but I'm also trying to start a church and Sunday's coming. What am I supposed to do? And so I would have definitely done a lot of things different there. There's a lot of regrets there, but I've never missed a football game or a sports game. Went to many of the practices. There were things that I did prioritize.
Oh, yeah. I remember that. Yeah.
But then I dropped the ball on some things, and I can't take that back. All I can do is go, I recognize that. I'm sorry. And I can't fix it, but I can do better tomorrow. I can do better today. I can do better, in the future. But there's nothing I can do for the past other than ask for your forgiveness and admit I was wrong. There were some changes that I made after some of those conversations. Usually with Nikki and I don't respond right away, probably in acknowledgement, but I'll think about it and go, okay, or I'll go, all right, how can I fix this? How can I be the man that I'm supposed to be, the husband, the father? So what I ended up doing, instead of sacrificing all of my Saturday, I started... Nikki and I we're religiously date night on Friday. If not, we're going to have it on another day, but we make that a regular practice and discipline, as every marriage should. And so if we've had to miss that, we'll make it up. Well, because we made that a regular practice, we would go date night, grab something for dinner, maybe go see a movie, do something, whatever. Sometimes we didn't have the money for that. We would just find something to do that we could afford for a date night. And then we would go home, maybe watch TV or something at the house. And then she usually goes to bed early. So usually about 8:30, 9 o'clock, she's going to bed anyway. And so by the time she would fall asleep, I would then get back up or whatever. And then I would go to my office or I would go to somewhere like Cookout or McDonald's that's open 24/7, because if I go sit in my comfortable chair in my office, you find yourself dozing off. But I would work through the night on Friday night when she was asleep. And so it could be 5 a.m. on Saturday. I'm crawling into bed after writing my message through the night, sleep a few hours, but now I've got more of Saturday with my wife and with my family to do some of those things. And so it was just like, what's most important, sleep or having time for your family? And so I sacrificed the sleep on behalf of having time for my family. And so then God blessed, and I was able to come on full time and things. And that hasn't always solved the problems because it's always busy. But that's probably been, those two that I shared today have probably been my biggest failures and my biggest lessons that I've had to learn and navigate that have consumed much of my life.
From a personal thing. I think if anybody's listening right now, because I know for me just sitting here, I love how you have kicked it back every time saying, now you're doing better. You're trying harder. You're not letting that define you. You're basically, I would say, recalibrating and trying to you can't undo what was done,
right.
But we can try to be better. And that's something that here we always say, get 1% better. And, but that shows humility. And I think that's a thing for men to know. Like sometimes men can dig themselves a hole and feel so bad that they have done this and then they never move forward. They just keep doing the same thing.
Right.
You know, it's like spinning your wheels, you know? And so if you hear that, I mean, just listen to what Nick said. I mean, it is the absolute truth. Like you hear it, you know it, you acknowledge, hey, I can't fix this, but what I can do is I can move forward and do better. And you're not going to be perfect at it, and you may find it could be a season or it could be a moment where you do fail again, and then just learn from it and then pick yourself up and move forward. You know, I try really hard not to make the same mistake twice. And I usually don't make them back to back, but I still make them.
Right.
But we can consider it an L, like a loss, or we can consider it a learn.
Right.
And it takes humility though to realize it's a learn, and you're going to be humble, you're going to be teachable, and you're going to have to think that you're like something special because you're really not. You know, we're just dudes just trying to make it and give it our best shot. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, I mean, that was awesome. I feel I know you well. So I feel like when you're saying that, I was like, you know, living it out.
Well, and for all those tuning in to take their notes or to confirm their biases, all of the haters, you know, let's say we got Shane who neglected his, angry, like me. Nick's angry. I've heard that before. Angry, doesn't do what's right. Make sure we review real quick for everybody who's writing things down. For gossip's sake, Nick's angry. Also,
Shane doesn't have it together.
Shane doesn't have it together. Doesn't pursue his wife, and then Nick puts his family on the back burner and doesn't prioritize them. So hopefully we've covered it all. But yeah, it's a great topic, great subject, great episode. And I know in the next couple of weeks, some of the things we've talked about, there's some other great stories. But we'll look and see, you know, maybe how many more failures, and maybe we make this a part 2.
Yeah. I think it should. We'll wait a few weeks. We'll get through what we're doing, and I think that we probably got some stuff.
Yeah, even just we discussed 2 each today, and it made an episode. So I know I've got at least 2 more out of the pages.
Oh yeah, out of the novel that we've collected. Yeah,
of failures. But hey, if you have found any benefit today from anything that we've said, thank you so much for tuning in.
Yep.
If you would do us a favor of going onto the platform, the podcast platform that you listen to, and like it, share it, review it. We are so grateful for the reviews and the shares that we see on Facebook and online. And so if you would do us that favor, that would be amazing.
Yep. Yes, sir. I agree. And like we always say, Male Cartel, get 1% better every day.
1% better every day. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining the Male Cartel podcast. Be sure to subscribe and share to help other men join the cartel. You can also keep up with us on social media and at malecartel.com.